Hi, we thought we were going to try something new, basically, and what we're going to do this time is we're going to basically send a video or send something that you can plug into an iPhone, to a laptop, to your iPad, and we thought it would be nice to do first quarter 2018 and do it that way. So the process is going to be this. We hope that you enjoy this, and the reason why we're going to do it is because so much has happened since I've been in your offices the last basically quarter that we thought it was really good to be able to update. So let's start out, and we're going to do international, basically the economy and how that's affecting us. Then we're going to do the national economy. Then we're going to talk about Silicon Valley, and then we're going to talk about the real estate market. And I think I'm going to talk about it in a little different way. I think you guys know your numbers. You see what's selling in different areas of the neighborhoods and the cities where you work. But I think the key now is how do you negotiate in a changing market? Because what we know in the statistics that came out this morning was, first of all, new home sales are still up, but they're down 15% from where they were with the high. Basically, new home sellers are basically coming in, and these builders are maybe doing 3 to 5 home sales a month, so that gives them some pricing power. But what we're seeing is they're having to give away a lot in order to get that pricing power. And we know that because of rising mortgage rates and the fact that a lot of people are pulling back, not quite knowing when this economy is going to slow down. Is there going to be a recession, or are we going to stay in a Goldilocks economy? They're sort of holding back, and buyers are very price sensitive. So I think that we're used to a market where you can basically price it anywhere, anytime, any place that you want, and we expect a lot of buyers to come. We expect to have multiple offers. Some of that will continue. Obviously, at the first-time home buyer in those areas, that will continue. Inventory there is very low, 1 to 2 months. But when you start to get up to the upper levels, you're going to see inventory has increased. They're getting much more price sensitive. They're beginning to look at interest rates with the 10-year now at 2.9, which means that you're probably going to add 1% to 1.5% to those mortgage rates in order to get in. That means that the buyers and sellers have to get into a different mode so we can keep this market active. You're still going to have a good market. It's not going to be a bad market. It's going to be a different market. So it's changing. Focus is the key, get these sellers on the right page and these buyers in the right mood so they don't basically back out. So let's start with the international, and I want to start first with the European Common Union. You know Mr. Draghi had a big meeting this last week, and basically what he said was this. He was going to take the euro, and he said he was not going to buy 35 billion of those a month to keep the value of the euro up. He was only going to buy 15 billion a month. So the euro over the last week has gone to hell in a handbasket, and everybody's taking euros and running over to our stock market to buy dollars. The second thing that he said was he was not going to change interest rates for a year. And their growth this year now in the first quarter in 2018 will probably be from about 1.8 to basically 2.1%. When you compare that with what our GDP is doing here, we're going to be at 3 to 4%. So you can see why everybody's running out of the European Common Union and coming over here. The next thing we need to talk about is North Korea. Now, you know that the president was just in Singapore, and he had a big meeting there, but it's the first step of something that's probably going to go on 2 to 5 years. Well, it's a process, and it has to stop. So the first was that the two people would meet. Gentleman in North Korea has invited Mr. Trump to come to North Korea. He says he wants to basically take away all his nuclear powers. But we know that that could be a play, because this meeting in North Korea put him on the map and made North Korea almost one of the big key players here. So we'll have to see what happens as we progress. But we hope this is the beginning of what could be good for the whole world. The next thing is I want to talk a little bit about China. Because China, you know, basically has done a couple of things. China basically has had tariffs put on them now, steel, aluminum, and very much this morning he put an extra $50 billion on China. Now, of course, they're going to retaliate, but let's talk about that when we get to tariffs, because for us, the hit will not be as hard as for those other countries. Now, the big thing with China, in order to get them to cooperate with us in North Korea, because we all know that they basically are the ones that guide North Korea, they supply it with most of its electricity and most of its food. So one of the things that happened a couple of months ago was there was a company in China called ZTE. And that company is a telephone company that was accused of and then basically prosecuted for taking our technology in cell phones. So they could have either gone to court here, or what the president agreed to do was to basically do a settlement with them. They are to pay back $1 billion in fines to the United States government, and within the next 30 days, they have to completely renew their board and do all management. Now, China liked that because they don't want to go to court here. They like to save face. They don't like anybody to think they're in the corrupt business. So that was our giveaway to them to get them to cooperate with North Korea. So now, at the end of the day, these tariffs have come on. Now, let's talk about tariffs. And I want to go back so that you understand what's happened. All of these agreements that we're basically coming up and faulting now were probably done about 20 years ago. At that time, we were a much bigger industrial nation against China, Japan, the European Common Union, Mexico, Australia, etc. And so what we did is we gave them an edge. We said to them, we will let you have basically more tariffs if we send products abroad. You can basically fine us. You can charge us, for example, in China. If you buy an American car there, they put a 24-inch tariff on it. Basically, if they send a Chinese car here, there's only a 3 to 4 tariff on it. So at the end of the day, that means that basically what's happened is that all of these agreements over the last 20 years have meant that we've gotten taken. Right now, today, we have a $460 billion deficit in trading. There is not one country we trade with that basically we make any money on. So it had to change, and the only way to change it is to go to NAFTA, to go to China, to go to Mexico, to go to all these countries and say, we're not doing this anymore. Either you come to the plate and you renegotiate your contracts, or we're going to start to raise tariffs. So you know what he's done. He's still negotiating with NAFTA, but he put basically on Mexico and Canada and basically the other countries that are in NAFTA. He said, fine, now there's going to be a 25% tariff on steel, a 10% tariff on aluminum. This morning, the $50 billion on China. But let's talk about what this is all going to mean to us. Let's say none of them sign the agreement, and they all say, we're not going to deal with you. We don't care. We're still going to keep to our side. Don't come and bring any products in because you're going to get hit the way you were. It will mean that our economy will suffer about $19 billion this year. And you know what kind of an economy we are? We're a $4 trillion economy. So it's like a pebble on a sand in the beach. It isn't going to affect us at all, but it's going to affect them greatly because they can't sustain themselves. The second thing is that basically we don't care if they come to the plate because what does it all mean? On a soup can, it's a half a cent. If you buy a car, it's like 2%. That's the change that we're going to see. And now it means that our steel mills are opening again. They're opening and building new ones. Companies that are abroad are coming back. We know that, for example, Toyota and Honda are building new plants in the southern part of the states. We know that Ohio and basically Pennsylvania, all companies are coming back now. So at the end of the day, I think people haven't understood what happened. You have to go back 20 years and see that these agreements are 20 years old, so they can't work in 2018. We have to stand up and say, this doesn't work anymore. You can't take us to the tune of $460 billion. I don't think it's Mr. Trump. I think they've all tried. Obama tried, Bush tried, Mr. Clinton tried, and they never could get any place because they weren't willing to hit them. He's willing to hit them, so whether you like him or not, that's the path that we're taking basically with all the tariffs. Now I want to talk about mergers and acquisitions. These are on an international, national scale too, because basically you know that the AT&T and Time Warner just fought a huge battle over 6 months. It cost them $180 million in legal fees to get that merger approved. Now, why is that important? Because the government said it was a horizontal merger, not a vertical one, and it was too alike, and they didn't want that to basically hit consumers. Well, they went to court, and the judge there said, you're absolutely crazy. These are not two like companies. They're totally separate, and one has the right to buy the other. Not only that, because you basically fooled around for 6 months trying to find evidence, now I'm going to allow them to buy each other without any conditions. Usually when you have a purchase that large, one company has to give up some territory or part of another company. He said, no, no conditions. And you cannot go back and get a stay on this, because if you do, I'm going to take you to court, Mr. Government, and I'm going to show you what happens. Now, why is that important? Because when you look at the companies that are affected in an international economy that has tariffs going on, think about it. Facebook can't go to China. Basically, Google can't go to China. In many countries in the Asian world, there's all kinds of restrictions. In the European countries, there's all kinds of restrictions. So who do you think is doing all the money and making all the money in this economy? AT&T, Time Warner, Facebook, Google, Apple, Netflix, you got Amazon.com. Those are all the companies that count. They make up 7 to 14% of the economy now. So do we care if they charge us an extra half cent in soup cans? No, we don't. Now what else is coming? We know that basically we have Mr. Buffett, and you know now you have Comcast and Disney fighting to get part of Fox. So now, how do we know that that's going to be a good deal? Because they're all over Fox. They're in England. They have their news service all over. So now you have basically Comcast, who just raised their bid to $65 billion, which means stock-wise it's about $35 a share. Why is that important? Because now companies will do mergers and acquisitions, and they will basically want to get together and do things because they know now they're not going to get hit. We've taken all the regulations that were in the economy in 2018, and now we know that those regulations have eased up. Okay, so on a national and international level, we see that international is helping our national economy, not hurting it the way it has in the past. So now let's talk about the national picture. I think we are going to be at least 3 to 4% GDP this first quarter. It could be more. I think by the end of the year, we could be at 4% or better. And all that is because of less regulation, more tax cuts, the fact that they eased up on mergers and acquisitions, the fact that you have technology doing everything and everything to drive this economy. So all that means that basically it's going to work. Now, how do we know it's working? Look at the Dow. They just went through all this in the international economy, and it's basically moved. You still have NASDAQ, the highest it's ever been, up 14% year to date. You have the Dow still holding at about 25,000, and you have the S&P basically at 2,700. NASDAQ is at 7,000, 6,000. So at the end of the day, you know that they're holding their own. They're not even responding to any of this other stuff that's going on. Good stocks, let's talk about that. I talk about all the technology companies, the Intels, the Ciscos, the Apples, the Facebook, the Googles, the Netflixes, and basically Amazon.com. I love Walmart, I love McDonald's, I love Cisco, I love basically Yum. I like all of that in retail, and that's beginning to come back also. I like some of the bank stocks. They're a little bit low, but they're starting to come alive again. The energy stocks are starting to come alive again. If you like defense, because we're going to do a lot of that, then you should lock basically Boeing, you should lock Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. If we're going to do a large infrastructure, you should basically look at Deere and Caterpillar. All those are great. Now let me talk about something else that's out there all the time, which is Bitcoin. You know it started in Japan by somebody about 10 years ago, and it went up as high as 20,000. But it's not a currency. It's an asset. It means it's like a day trading of stock. You can buy it, you can sell it, you can agree on a price, but it's not backed by the United States government. Down to close to 5,000 right now, so it's come down a little bit, but people still love to play it. So think of it as a stock. Trade it as a stock. Don't try to trade it too much as a currency. Yeah, Japan will do it. Some of the Koreas will do it, but you can't really do that here. And in fact, if you try to do that and you buy something in title, they will make sure that you have Bitcoin up, but in case it's not there, the value when you close, they're going to make you do good faith money, and they're going to make you basically put up a cashier's check. So be careful what you're doing. Do I think there'll be a cybersecurity currency at some point? I do. I think the government's already looking at that because all these millennials love to have what they call pay online. And in order to do that, you're going to have a security that can go through the banks, that can go through PayPal, etc. And I think you will have that, but it isn't there yet, but it's certainly going to be coming. Now let's talk a little bit about what we know is going to be happening with the national economy. I think that basically the question for everyone is how long is it going to last? Well, let's talk about the tech area. The tech area is on fire. Do you know if Warren Buffett sells his share of basically either Disney or Comcast that's trying to get basically Fox, do you know he will owe in taxes $7 billion to the United States government just on a gain? The other day, AT&T and Time Warner, people that sold that, it was an all-cash deal, they made billions of dollars. All that's going to the government. So right now we're what I would call a Goldilocks economy. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. How long is it going to last? Well, I think it's going to last at least until 2020, because I look there out on the horizon and I don't see any way, with what technology is doing and all the things they're bringing out, driverless cars, artificial intelligence, healthcare. Today is the first-year anniversary of when Amazon.com bought Whole Foods, and they're doing a tremendous amount of business in that. They've come out and merged with Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, and J.P. Morgan, and they're going into the healthcare business. And Amazon has a new product out called Basic Care that they're putting online and in all the Whole Foods, which is all health products. And they're going to go crazy now, because now you don't have to stand in line at Walgreens. You can use their Basic Care, and when you do that, you can just order it online. So we have a very strong economy here, and everybody is out. Stocks have never done better. Everything is almost on a high factor. And so I think that basically we probably have till 2020. Now, what's going to happen in 2020? It's anybody's guess. Yes, there'll be another recession at some point in time. Yes, the economy will slow down, but I don't see that happening right now. Now let me talk a little bit about the fact of the real estate market, because I think the real estate market is really important. And I think the way I want to talk about it is the way that I started, by saying, you know, when you look at the real estate market, one, we have to agree that it's slowing down somewhat. We have to agree that it still has many of the same things it had over the last year. Low inventory in certain markets. Basically, you're still going to have multiple offers, but I think here's what's changing. It's the focus of buyers and the realistic reality of sellers that needs to come together, because here's what I see happening. Let's talk about generally some of the areas, and we know that now we don't divide areas necessarily by just neighborhoods. We divide them by trendy, which means millennials love them. They're very trendy, which means they're in areas which they want and areas in which they like. They are basically in areas where you can walk to neighborhoods, and they have all the restaurants and the parks and the babies and the parks for the dogs, and they all live on a park in a neighborhood, and they all interact. Then you have mid-trendy, which are a little bit lower on the scale. They still have homes. Those homes are probably selling for a good amount of money. You may have some multiple offers there, you may not, but they're not going to be where they're redo development, where they're what they call suburbans or burbans, which means that it's a mixture of city life and country life. And then you have the areas that are non-trendy. Those are the ones that for some reason millennials don't like them. They either don't like them because they're not houses, they don't like them because they're condominium or townhouses and they would rather live with houses, or they're in areas that are not real popular, like a Hillsborough, California. Sure, that works at $2 to $3 million, but when you get up into the higher range, it doesn't work at that level, because millennials won't spend that to live there. They would rather go to Cupertino, they would rather go to Menlo Park, they would rather go to Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, and live there. So that's the first thing. We don't divide anymore by cities. Yeah, you do when you talk about cities and neighborhoods, but you have to understand, and so do your sellers and buyers, you're in trendy, mid-trendy, or not trendy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when I say this market is slowing down, I think it's still active. I told you, new sales are up this month, but they're still 15% down from the height. We see that builders are selling, but they don't have the pricing power that they had. It's taking longer, and buyers especially are very price sensitive and focused on the amenities and what they can get. Now, what you had in the past was people just priced a property, it went, they didn't care what they spent. You're still going to have a couple of those. In San Francisco just a week ago, somebody blew $1.6 million over on a $7 million property because they don't care. They have the money from stock options or from basically a company that went public in Silicon Valley, and they may do that. But those are not anymore 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 in a year. You're going to find that those are much few, because those people all bought basically in 2017 and 2016. So I think the key is this. We're going to have to educate people to a new kind of market. It's still a good real estate market. Prices are the best they've ever been. I think the slowdown you're going to see, and I think it's a good thing, they're not going to pay as much, which means things aren't going to go up 20, 30%. We can't do that, or we'll be priced totally out of the market, or people will move from California because they can't afford the prices here. So let's talk how we should negotiate, because I think that's important. Negotiating becomes key. Education becomes key. So let's take an example. You get a call, let's say it's from Hillsborough, California. It could be from Menlo Park. It could be from Palo Alto, East Palo Alto. Those are trendy areas. So where are we? In San Francisco, you have Burnell Heights. You have basically the Castro. You have basically all of the things basically in the parts of Richmond. You have all the things by the park. You have areas out by the Sunset. Those are all trendy areas. Those are all areas now where entry into San Francisco is probably close to $3 million in those areas. So how can a seller say it's not a good market? Go back and show them 3 to 5 years ago what they paid and let them see. They've probably had 67% appreciation. How can they say it's a bad market? What they need to understand now is they have to deal now with a market that's given them 67% and probably isn't going to give them another 67%. So the first key is, where are you located? What are the things you have that millennials like? Close to where they work, good transportation, good schools, safety, urban, suburban areas where they can get the most of the urban and the city life all mixed together. So those areas, they probably can still list at $3 million. They'll probably get some multiple offers, and they'll probably go over list, but it's not going to be 30 or 40%. So I think what sellers need to do, if it was me, I think all sellers need to look at a percentage and a formula, and I would do this. I would say, Mr. Seller, we now need to look at everything that's sold in March, because that's the height of the market. Have numbers gone down since then? If they have, what percentage have they gone down? Now let's look at the competition, because that's who you're competing against. Is your house as updated as the competition, or is it backdated? Is your house basically staged, or does it look tired and old? All those things make a difference. And so I think if you're state-of-the-art, if you're basically staged, if you have all the things we discussed, transportation, safety, etc., good schools, then you can be right at where the market was probably in March. If not, I think you need to be down 3 to 5% below that March number to get interest, to get them to want to come, and to get them to want to stay, not just look, make an offer, and then back out, because that's what we're seeing happening. Now let's talk about the mid-trendy. And where are the mid-trendies? Well, you've got Daly City. You've got basically some of the areas, South San Francisco, San Bruno. You're going to have some of the areas down in the San Jose area. You're going to have some of the, like Almaden, San Ramon in the East Bay. And in the East Bay, you're going to have a whole bunch too. You're going to have areas like Fremont. You're going to have areas like basically Hayward, Richmond, Alameda. You're going to have Newark, Livermore, etc. Those are all hot. Go back and look at what they've done over the last 2 or 3 years. They're up 50, 60% too, but go back and look since March, because some of them are adjusting a little bit, or if they're going, they're not going as much over market as they did. So I would say to them, again, depending upon all that criteria, where do you place against the competition? And if you place right at where the competition is, those prices are still holding or going above, great. If not, then I think you need to be 3 to probably 5% below March numbers in order to get some excitement. I know, like in Pittsburgh, they only had 2 homes for sale, so everything is going like crazy. But you go to other areas and they have 17 homes for sale where they didn't have it in March, and so they're sitting. Now, we discussed another area, Hollister, which has been extremely, extremely hot, as Morgan Hill has been, but there's 2 condominiums sitting on the golf course. They're condominiums. They've been on this for sale, no offers. Another one's been taken off the market. I think I know why. In Hollister, they're building brand new homes. Nobody wants to pay $500,000 for a condominium when you can buy a brand new home for $500,000. You'll get more square footage. It'll be in a neighborhood environment and closer to where you can walk to get to town. There's what you have to understand, Mr. Seller. It's not just about this is the market, this is where prices in March, this is where they should be now. There's a whole bunch of criteria you need to look at, and you real estate people need to go in. Look back 5 years, where was the price, what is it today, what was it in March, how close are we to March, has it changed since March? Then we need to make a recalculation. If you're in areas that are not desirable, that would be the real high. And Saratoga, they have 10,000 square feet that are selling for $6 million. They can't give them away. They've been on the market for 200-300 days. Go over to Blackhawk or go to Ruby Hill in the East Bay. They have homes that have been on the market 200 days there. And 200 days there means that they don't care. They don't want to live there because there's no retail. You can't walk to anything. So at the end of the day, the key is to first educate the sellers as to where they need to be priced. Now here's what buyers are doing. They're coming in very price sensitive. What they're saying is, I'm going to play this market now. Mortgage rates have gone up. I know there's more inventory in some of the areas. I see things are sitting longer. I want everything I should have or I'm not going to play. Or you know what? Then in those areas that are not trendy, you need to be 7 to 10% below March prices. And that's the only way to sell your property, because otherwise they're not going to play. I can't tell you how many times I have heard agents call me and say, you know, Carole, we've been sitting a long time now with this property. Well, it's not a trendy area. They don't really want to live there. They don't see the good school districts. They can't get to a retail environment by walking. They don't feel it's close to transportation. Everything that's in competition with them is better, so they're not going to play. What they're going to do is hold back. And you know what? Mortgage rates are going up, because when you have a 2-year at 2.9 and you add 1% to that, look at where your mortgage rates are. You're going to be bustling in the next few months towards 5% on loans. That makes a big difference to people. So at the end of the day, they don't care right now. They're going to try to wait out the market because they're absolutely convinced this market is changing, it's slowing down, and that's not really the right word. The right word is, yes, it's changing. It's refocusing. You have to educate sellers. You have to basically renew the mentality of the seller, because here's what's going to happen. They're going to wait, right? Well, let's look at somebody who waited. Let's say 3 years ago, they went into Cupertino, and Cupertino was at 600,000-700,000. The next year, it was at 8. Then it was at 9. Then it was at $1 million. Now it's at $1.3 million. Do you realize how much money they lost by waiting out the market? So it's not going to go up that much in Cupertino. But I guarantee you by the end of the year, it'll be $1.5 million, $1.6 million. So you know what you've done, Mr. Seller? You're going to have to pay more interest. There's not going to be as much good inventory on the market. And oh, by the way, you just cost yourself $800,000. Do you realize how much money that is? So you know what? I'm now in the $1.5 million in Cupertino. I'm going to sell you my house that I bought at $800,000. And I'm going to take that $800,000 and I'm going to go buy another piece of property, and I'm $800,000 ahead. So you've kept waiting, waiting, waiting to time the market. What makes a good real estate market? A good economy, lack of inventory in the market. You have both of those. I just told you they're probably not going to end until 2020. So at the end of the day, you got to get in, because mortgage rates are going to go to 5. Wait till they get to 6. Then you're going to see this economy start to hurt a bit. So right now, you have a golden moment left. You're at the last of the golden moments. So you need to take advantage of that. So I think that's where we are. I think that basically we will hope that you will enjoy that. I think that what's going to happen is you can use it on any medium, iPhones, iPads, regular computers, whatever. You can also, I guess, get one of the bigger ones and put it any place you want. I hope you will enjoy it. If you have any questions, I will tell you. You can certainly give me a call. I'm going to give everybody my cell phone number. It's 408-348-9914. Let me repeat it again. 408-348-9914. I'm happy to help you with anything that you need for me to help you with. I just think this. Don't get nervous over this market. It's not a bad market. It's a changing market. It's like we go through golden economies. The national economy is golden. Yes, it will come to an end. It doesn't mean it has to blow up. It doesn't mean there will be a recession. What it means is it's a changing market. And your negotiating skills, how much you can educate your sellers, how much you can focus your sellers, you got to get in. That's the key. So you have a mellow market. That's a good place to be. It's like drinking a couple of bottles or a couple of glasses of good red wine. You have a great wine, you have a good wine. There's nothing wrong with a great or good, because both of them will make you feel very happy at the end of the day. So I'll see you soon, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you.